Hello and welcome back to Sunday Vibes, everybody. We are not in the pub this week. We're actually on the Monday Vibes set. To clarify, Joe is off in Burnley, Mikey is in Ipswich, but I do have the honour of being joined by Sam Abasaki.
What are you telling me, bro?
How are you, big man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I haven't been on Sunday Vibes in time, to be fair, and you guys just always get me on this stuff when we're talking about Chelsea just not doing great.
It has to be done. It has to be done. But you were at QPR last night, Loftus Road.
Yeah.
How's everything going? You're on TV, left, right, centre.
Trying, man. Trying. So are you, to be fair.
Killing it.
But it's been going well.
Chat with Klopp.
I spoke to Klopp. Nice guy, man.
He was winding up Chelsea this week. Did you see that on the pitch?
To be fair, he clarified that and he said that he was just talking about, the fact that he got lucky with his team and that he wasn't taking any shots. And someone actually I shouldn't say it, but they told me things off air that was like, to be fair, I see where you're coming from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. He wasn't being too much of a wind-up.
Yeah, but obviously some of these managers, they know how to get at teams without directly getting at teams, innit? So
he's an entertainer.
Exactly.
He's an entertainer.
Exactly.
But yes, this is it's semi-annual How to Fix Chelsea episode on Sunday Vibes. We do have a contribution from a very well-known Chelsea contributor coming up in the show.
Yeah.
We've got Mr. Sam Abasaki to talk us through what has been a really difficult start to the season. 2-0 defeat to Everton last weekend. This weekend under huge pressure, because I've got some facts for you.
Okay.
I've got some facts for you.
Let me hear them, man. I know them already, but
you've won 9 Premier League games.
Yeah.
In 2023 out of a possible 39.
Yep.
Every point gained in 2023 has cost £20.4 million.
I saw that. I don't know how these people think of this stuff.
Yeah.
To be honest, when did we
Sounds
start
like
doing
Burn
that?
on TikTok. I saw that on TikTok.
When did we start doing that stuff, though? When is that become a thing?
When you spend $1 billion, you leave yourself open to that sort of interpretation.
Nonsense.
You finished 12th last season with 44 points, the worst season in their Premier League history, and they finished 3rd with 30 more points the year before. This season, they're on track for 45 points. They're 14 points off the top 4 after 16 games. They do have a Carabao Cup quarter-final against Newcastle next Tuesday. Quickly, before we get into anything, that is a huge game for Chelsea.
Yeah, big game. Newcastle, they beat us in the fixture in the Premier League. And to be fair, first half was all right. Second half, there wasn't enough fight. So I think Chelsea fans and probably Poch and the Chelsea players, they just need a performance. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, regardless of result, and I think that's what most people have been saying this season. Like, regardless of results, obviously you still want to win and get draws and come up against the big teams and do well. But it's the consistency with the performances. If that's there, then people have something to hold on to.
For sure. Okay, let's talk about this season, because as a neutral, I think you are quite a bit better than you were last year.
Yeah.
And definitely more entertaining, but still got the same issues, the lack of a clinical, regular goal scorer in front of goal, the inability to break down deep block defences. What have you taken from this season? Do you see green shoots of recovery, or are you surprised by how poor the results have been?
I think we've been a lot better, and you summed it up, and you've been fair on social. Sometimes you randomly just bring out a bad stat for Chelsea. It's just like, bro, what have you been thinking about? What have you been reading? Like, you just randomly say, Chelsea haven't won in like 25 games. I'm like, bro.
No, my one this week was they've won 6 games. You know, the guy that's running the entire length of Africa in 235 days.
Not good enough. But like, I think you've been fair. I think what people have been seeing of Chelsea, obviously you'd expect more because it's Chelsea Football Club and you want them to, win the games that you expect them to win and go into the big games and, compete. And I think there's been a lack of consistency on that sense. But I don't think, and people might say this is an excuse, I don't think it's an excuse because you still want Chelsea to perform as a Chelsea fan. But the injuries haven't helped, to key players that obviously Pochettino as a manager, yes, you can say he should be versatile and he should be able to adapt. But when you come into a team and you're setting up a team, a young team as well, you've got the idea of a first team in your mind, regardless of what level. You play FM, you play EA, FC, you've got that in your mind. When those players are dropping week in, week out, you've got to adapt in game basically, and you're doing it against some of the best teams in the world and the best league in the world, and this stuff can add pressure to your team. It can add inconsistencies to your team because, like we've said, a lot of the players haven't played in the Premier League. A lot of them are young. A lot of them aren't used to that type of pressure. So there's been players in the team where you're looking at them and you're saying, you know what, you had a good game last week. Why wasn't you able to replicate it again this week? And there's been so many different factors, and I don't want it. I I don't feel like it's an excuse. It's just you're just looking at the scenario. You're looking at some of the youngsters that are playing for their national teams as well, and how many games that they played. You're talking about a team that have played well. Let's say the first 10 games, I'd say probably deserved a few more points that Chelsea got, but at the same time you didn't get that. And then the games after, I can say, okay, cool, there was a flurry of 3 or 4 games that Chelsea weren't at the level that they had been showing under Poch beforehand. And I think that's why he almost spoke about the transfer window and doing things, because losing to Manchester United, probably the worst performance for Chelsea this season, and then losing
worse than Newcastle.
Yeah, worse than Newcastle, because Chelsea were just flat throughout the whole game, and then losing the game to Everton after that was the first time he's lost back-to-back games in the Premier League. But it felt worse because they obviously were in 10th, and it's like, regardless of the result, you're not climbing anywhere, so the pressure is still on. And then when you drop points, it's like, okay, now you're in big trouble. And then I won't say he panicked, but he probably looked at his scenario and he was like, nah, we need experience, man. We need this, we need that. And he's looking at the players that are out injured, and when they're coming back, losing Reece James, losing Chilwell, losing Sanchez, Cucurella is now injured as well.
We'll probably get on to him later in the show, but how worried are you about Reece James?
It's worrying because I don't think it's a simple surgery that can save him. Like everyone says, and I was saying it as well, get the surgery, it's a hamstring injury that's been recurring. But then I saw a take by a few doctors have had this take, and they said that hamstring injuries aren't as simple as just having a surgery and you'll be back to 100%. Sometimes it's like it needs to get to the worst of it before you can do the surgery. If it's not at that level, then you have to almost do the rehab and hope that it just doesn't recur. And I think that's what's happening with Reece James. He doesn't seem like the type of person that would put off a surgery that would make him play better. So he's been unfortunate. Obviously, he's very young. He's one of the best right backs in the league on his day. But I think now people are starting to realise, okay, cool, because there's not the consistency, can't really put him in that conversation. And that might be good for him, because I feel like, yes, Poch trusted him to be captain, and it made sense because of his ability and what he means to Chelsea and the fans. But that type of pressure for a club that finished where they did last season and what they want to do moving forward, it's a lot of pressure, especially when he's got pressure on his body. Like, he wants to perform week in, week out. He's not able to do that. He's looking around, and he's got Thiago Silva to lean on, who's probably the only senior figure in defence that he can lean on and say, you know what, that's where I can get motivation from. So I feel for him, man. Like, genuinely, I feel for him. I'm hoping that he can come back from this injury and do, I don't know what it will take. Like, everyone looks at these injuries and they talk like,
we all become medical experts, don't we?
Okay, he needs a surgery, he's going to be out for 6 to 4 months, but at least no one knows, bro. Right. Like, and I'm sure he's
getting the best information.
Exactly. And seeing reports of him seeing like even more specialists to see what it really is that's causing him to have that recurring issue, because Poch a week before said that he was fine and he felt he was fine. So yeah, man, it's unfortunate. Gusto's out injured as well. He's replacement. Well. Exactly. So there's just so much happening, and I don't think a lot of people, because obviously it's Chelsea and the money that they spent, the amount of players, they will just talk as if you have the answers. You should always have the answers. But in reality, when you break it down, injuries, the lack of experience, the youth, you're going to have teething issues, and we're not going to be the people to say we're going to give them time, because when you spend that much money and you add the quality that you say you've added, you should have some sort of consistency with results. But the reality is sometimes it can turn out how we're seeing it. Yeah,
absolutely. I think you make a good point about the money spent kind of eroding away any sympathy people would have for Chelsea, and it's maybe a little bit unfair, because when people talk about Newcastle's injuries recently, when people talk about Man United's injuries recently,
Spurs,
you got Spurs as well, I feel like they get given a little bit more leeway than you guys do when you've had Chilwell, Reece James, and Kunku hasn't even played a minute in the Premier League yet. Now, these are 3 massive players, probably would be 3 of your best 4 or 5 players if they were fully fit. The worrying thing is, for me, from a Chelsea perspective, is I totally agree with you. I think across the first 6 games or so, I think your general performance level was much higher than your results. Then you went through that period of actually picking up, I think you lost 1 in 6, and that was when you drew to Arsenal, drew to Man City, and I was like, things are starting to happen here. And then just the recent run, just at a crucial time of the season. You do have a nice set of fixtures coming up, though. So Sheffield United at home this weekend. That feels like That feels like a must-win.
Yeah.
Absolute must-win, which is crazy to say when you're taking on the 20th best side. But yeah, that's huge. Wolves away, then Palace at home, Luton away, and Fulham at home. So after having gone through that horrendous run in November and December, you can now start to look forward. But in terms of bringing this back to like where are Chelsea at compared to last year, I think they are more entertaining, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a low bar because Chelsea under Potter were pretty miserable to watch for sure. But there are some worrying trends going downwards in recent weeks. So your shots have gone up from 12.7 to 13.6. That's still the 10th best in the league this year. Your possession has actually gone down this year. Your shots against have weirdly gone up as well. So after that amazing start, or I say amazing start, promising start after 6 or 7 games, and we were like, Chelsea will fly up the table. Expected points were suggesting you're around 4th or 5th best. Now you're way below that. And your expected goals against per game has now gone back up as well. And it feels like that balance of midfield hasn't been quite right. And that chopping and changing at centre-back I just don't think's helped whatsoever.
At all.
But you've heard our opening thoughts about Chelsea. Let's hear the thoughts of well-known Chelsea legend contributor Matisse on 2 players he thinks should leave Chelsea and 2 who should come in.
Yes, people, 2 in, 2 out. Chelsea, how do we fix them? For me, listen, if Chelsea are to be steered back on course in this Premier League campaign, they need to potentially make a few adjustments in that team and rebalance and recalculate and calibrate that side. So up in the goalkeeping position, I'm going to say is the first person to come in. I think that's really important that Chelsea find a long-term number one. I think Sanchez was always, for me, seen as a stopgap. I don't think he's shown the quality at this point, up until this point, to be considered as a long-term number one. He's a decent goalkeeper. He's a good goalkeeper, but I don't think he's Chelsea level or quality. Now, there is someone that is potentially going to go under the radar here, but Bulka at Nice. He's playing regularly for them. He's in a team that is now second in the French division, stands at 6'6", plays out from the back, makes fantastic saves, great reactions, great reflexes, and has saved 2 penalties as well this season. So I think he's a player that could potentially come in back to a club that he's been at before and could really surprise people, could shock people, and could be playing of a higher level and have a higher potential than a player like Sanchez. So that's the first position I'd look at, and I'd look to rectify that situation. There is other options, the AC Milan keeper is pretty injury prone, potentially Porto as well. You could look there at Carlos, but I'm going to go with Boluka because I just think he's someone that's probably going under the radar right now. Up front is the second person to bring in. I'd look at bringing in a striker, of course, to make this team more clinical, more prolific, and in those tight games that are decided by fine margins, this is the type of player that needs to come in to decide those fine margins. Now, for me, again, you're talking about experience, you're talking about bringing in someone that's been there and done it in this league. Ivan Toney is a strong option because at Brentford, he bolstered fantastic goal tallies last season. He's clearly a player that, in terms of his all-round game, is very refined and very complete. He can drop deep, he can hold up the ball, he's a physical player, but he's also good at obviously finishing and dealing with the crosses coming in the air. You have to be to play at a team like Brentford, who obviously throw a lot of long balls in there, a lot of crosses, a lot of set pieces. So for me, I just think he's someone that would give Chelsea a different option. Again, age profile, just a big difference from the likes of Jackson and Broja, and just provide a bit of balance. So those would be my 2 players of an older age, and also, like I said, bring a bit of quality into the side. Now, in terms of leaving, I'd look at Broja probably leaving, unfortunately. I don't think he's been given enough time to make such a maybe rash decision like that, but he's been injured. Chelsea, if you're going to bring in a striker, you've got to make room, you've got to make way. You've already invested in Jackson over the summer. You've got Nkunku as your emergency kind of third choice. You've got to make some sort of space for a striker, and that's Broja, unfortunately, who does go down as pure profit and does go down as somebody that could go into maybe a Fulham, or maybe West Ham have been interested over the years as an Antonio option. So yeah, I think he's a decent option. And then also another player to leave is pretty simple for me, is Ian Maatsen. You could even throw maybe Trevor Chalobah in this conversation, just players that are not going to get opportunities, players that are not going to see the pitch anytime soon. Again, they're falling under pure profit. They're not playing. They're talented players, but they could definitely be serviced better elsewhere and get minutes under their belt. So those are my guys to go. And let's see, does that fix Chelsea's situation? You let me know in the comments.
Okay, we heard there from Matisse, and he suggested that Robert Sanchez should leave, that Armando Broja should leave. I think some Chelsea fans might not be happy with, but let's discuss those, the 2 biggest statements probably in that piece. with Oba now. Robert Sanchez, thoughts, feelings? Do you want him to be the long-term number one?
Long-term number one, I'm still undecided, being completely honest. I think that the type of keeper that Chelsea would need, or what Pochettino wants in terms of your ball-playing ability, they'll need to be a bit better than Sanchez. I think shot-stopping, he's actually very calm. I think he's quite questionable coming out for crosses and that sometimes, but there's some games where he just claws at it and he's got it and it's calm. But I think Chelsea just need consistency at the back, and I think when you look at what we've been through in the last few years since not having Courtois, you just want that consistency. You want a keeper that is good at saving shots, that has got decent distribution. I think everyone's so obsessed with your keeper being the best ball player. I think that it's overrated. Genuinely think it's overrated. I would
David
much
De Gea is
rather
available.
no. I would much rather have a keeper that is able to just shot stop when he gets the ball. If the option is available, then you play it. If not, you go long.
Like a Nick Pope.
Yeah, I'd much rather that. What we see from Sanchez a lot, and I don't know if Chelsea fans, you probably have this vision in your mind, is where the ball comes from the right-hand side, and then because there's a player pressing him, he tries to do the first-time pass to the left-back, and it fails every time.
Yeah.
Like, every time. And it's like, at some point, you have to just learn that it's just not working. And I don't know whether he's being asked to do this or constantly play out from the back, but there has to be some sort of like experience and learning from this. Like, you don't want to put your defense under pressure. You talked about the stats of the shots that we're facing. That has to play in your mind. I know the goalkeeper coaches will probably tell him to retain possession, but it's a time and a place, and I just don't think he's been able to adapt to that and adapt to his mistakes. Maybe he thinks that he can like brush it off of his game, but it's not happening. I don't think we should look for a keeper right now. Haven't seen Petrovic play yet. Don't know how well he'll do if Sanchez is out injured. But yeah, I don't think keeper is the first place that I'd go to. And I don't actually look on the keeper market and see anyone that is a Mike Maignan that will cost a lot of money to be an immediate impact. Leno just signed a new contract at Fulham, or he's signing a new contract. He's a keeper that you actually, most clubs that is trying to be in that conversation should have said, you know what, let's put money towards that, because he's been quality. He's still one of the top keepers in the league, and you know Fulham are really lucky to have him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's talk about the goalkeeper that Matisse recommended you get, Marcin Bulker, was actually on the books of Chelsea between 2016 and I think 2019 before going to PSG. Only ever made 2 appearances for PSG. Has now been on a series of loan moves. He's gone to play in the Segunda Division. He's gone to play in Ligue 2. He's now at Nice after a loan spell there. But this is his first year as Nice's number one, or at least playing regularly. So I think it's a little bit of a risk, but there are a lot of exciting attributes that he's got. He's 6'6". He's playing behind the best backline in Europe in terms of goals against per game. Above Inter Milan, I believe. I think they're second on that list. And yeah, things are looking promising for Farioli's Nice. But Bulker, I think that is a little bit of a risk. A goalkeeper they could potentially have a look at is Unai Simon of Athletic Club, Spain's number one. He's more of that mould of the ball-playing centre-back, but I think he's been pretty consistent for a number of years now. Did have that big mistake in Euro 2020, which people will remember having watched this, but he's actually performing really well for Athletic Club, so that's another option. The other big talking point from Matisse was Broja. Are you on that agreement as well? Do you feel like it's too early to cut your losses, or do you think if you bring in a striker in January or in the summer, he is the one to make way?
100%. And it's unfortunate because injuries really affected him becoming that starting striker. I remember last season when he was just about to get a run of games, he got injured, and then it's almost a cycle again. And it's happened a lot with players that have come from Cobham. Just as they're going to break into the side, they get an injury and it stops their progression, and then they've got to fight with another player in their position. And I think the way we're playing now doesn't necessarily suit his game as much. We want a striker that can link the play, that makes those runs in behind, which he can do as well. But when there's so much pressure, and there's so much pressure to score goals, and you need an experienced striker to do that, I think if you're going to sacrifice one of the strikers, it's going to be the player that's been there for longer, because Jackson, even though he is an inconsistent, or he's proven that he's been inconsistent so far, he is still a player that they just recently signed. Not going to sell him straight away. Broja's been at the club for a long time. He's loved by the fans. He loves Chelsea as well. But it's one of those ones where if they were to sell him, it'll be pure profit. You know, all of these things that we hear all the time surrounded by Chelsea and the money that they're going to make. It would be unfortunate to see him go, but experience is needed. Like, it is desperately needed. And I think when you look at Chelsea's front line, the lack of experience is worrying when you're going into the bigger games and seeing the teams that you're facing and saying, like, okay, where are the goals going to come from on a consistent basis? I don't think any Chelsea forward in the last 2-3 years has been consistent, and this is going back too cool. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it'll be unfortunate. I don't necessarily want to see him go, but I understand it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, that serious injury kept him out till September. He picked up another injury. He's only just recently come back. It's a little bit of a shame. I mean, Matisse recommended Ivan Toney there for Chelsea. He feels like probably the most likely Chelsea signing in January in terms of a striker, because Victor Osimhen, I mean, Napoli are through to the Champions League knockouts, despite making that group look a little bit harder than it probably should have been. They're still in the top 4 race in Serie A. Someone like Lautaro Martinez, I don't think Inter Milan are planning on selling. I don't think he's planning on leaving either.
Yeah.
So Ivan Toney, out since May, I think over 20 league goals last year before his ban. Do you think it's risky to bring him in, or is he the sort of player that you'd like to see arrive in January?
Yeah, I'd like to see him come, but also there's just no one else that I can think that has the Premier League experience, that has the experience of scoring goals, and that has that arrogance to say, you know what, I'm going to come into this team and bag goals, and is proven to do that. Like, every time people have questioned Ivan Toney on what he's going to do, what he's going to achieve in the Premier League, he silences everyone. And the only difficult thing is that Arsenal are in need of a striker, and they've been linked with him, and I think he's an Arsenal fan, or I saw something along those lines. He was almost...
It's definitely been said, I don't know.
Yeah, he was talking about making the move and the rumours around it, and that is a much more desirable prospect, isn't it? So the reality is it will be difficult for us to lure him to Chelsea when Arsenal saying, you know what, you're going to come in, you are a striker alone. Every other player that is playing for Arsenal in that position, they could play wide, somewhere else. So yeah, if we're able to do it, depending on the price as well, to be honest, at this point, we've spent $1 billion. So if they're saying 60, 70 and you've got that, just spend it, bro. Bro, you're going the other way. Why not? Because we desperately need that experience. It even makes me question why we ever sold Giroud. Genuinely.
Great assist last night.
Yeah, he's been quality for AC. He's been quality, and he's the type of player that is got that leadership quality. He's professional. You need that. You need that in your squad, and we're just missing that.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've got a wild card suggestion. Victor Gyökeres. From he was at Coventry last year. What did he get in get a load of this? 21 goals and 12 assists in the Championship last year for Coventry. Made the playoff final. They lost on penalties to Luton. Now at Sporting CP, and he's gone off an absolute rocket.
I've seen compilations.
Swedish forward, yeah. I mean, seriously physical, very good running threat in behind. Looks like a really good all-round striker. Is a wild card option.
But that's what I'm saying. Chelsea don't have the room for wild cards anymore.
Yeah,
we don't have.
I mean, Nicholas Jackson was the wildest of wild cards.
Exactly, and that cost 30 million.
Yeah, hasn't necessarily come off.
Exactly. So yeah, no more.
I mean,
wild
Victor
cards,
Gyökeres cost Sporting 20 million euros in the summer. I think they'd look to turn at least double that. At least double that, because he's performing really well. 11 goals and 5 assists in 16 league and Europa League games. So seriously impressive stuff. Let's talk about a couple of other outs. Now, when I talked to you before we started filming, you talked about some other profit players that you could sell.
Yeah.
Maatsen, Chalobah. Are you very much in the camp that, thank you for your services, particularly in Maatsen's case, it hasn't necessarily worked out this season, but we can make a profit on you?
Yeah, for sure. And I think at this point, Chalobah's been really unfortunate with injuries as well, hasn't been able to...
He's going to be gutted that move to Bayern didn't come off.
Yeah, because that would have been huge for him. And they've obviously got centre-backs in that position as well, but at the same time, it would have been a great step for him to take, especially at a time where Chelsea signed Disasi, Fofana's out injured, but he's obviously higher up in the pecking order. Silva, Badiashile, Colwill. So it's clear that, there isn't necessarily room for him to, stake a claim in the squad. And I think it just makes sense for his career as well, because he's had games for Chelsea where you could say he's a really good centre-back, but he's also had games where you could say, okay, he needs to learn how to be consistent, in the Premier League. And I think sometimes some of these centre-backs that have learnt their trade in here, even though he had loan moves elsewhere, I think because he's had a few spots here and there in the Premier League, going elsewhere might be perfect for him. Like Tomori, for example, he's really shining at AC Milan. And I think, like you said, pure profit for Chelsea, it would make sense. Ian Maatsen would be unlucky, I'd say, but the position that he's playing in...
Should you have sold him in the summer?
I think they tried, but I don't think that there was a substantial fee
offer
that Chelsea wanted at the time. And it's unfortunate again, because when you look at what he's doing at Chelsea and what, let's say, for example, Lewis Hall, who had experience in the Premier League and for Chelsea, you question whether they should have kept Hall and done what they could have to sell Maatsen. And yeah, he even in pre-season, he didn't really stake a claim in the position that he plays. He had some good games in number 10 and was showing a lot of aggression and intensity that you'd see from a Pochettino side. But in the Premier League, he's come on and had a few moments, but nothing that would make you say, yeah, he needs to stay.
Fair enough. Right, let's talk Pochettino quickly, and then we're doing a final part of the show, which is actually going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Let's talk Pochettino, because some Chelsea fans have been frustrated with his team selections.
Yeah.
Do you understand the frustrations? Do you see what he's trying to do? Where are your thoughts on Poch?
I just think for the squad that he's got, and trust me, like, I love Chelsea, love the players. Still, you know, as managers, they've got to convince you. I think when Poch came in, he actually convinced quite a lot of Chelsea fans that he is the man for the job. And you could see what he wanted to do, the intensity he wanted to play in, the belief that a lot of the players spoke about as well. That's the most important thing. When you have Colwill, you have Noni, you have Madueke, all of these players talking about what he's saying to them to make them believe in the project, that makes you buy into him as well. But when you see some of the decisions, you question it, but at the same time, when you do see some of the players then perform, like Mudryk, for example, who everyone was saying he should have been starting. He had a few games, wasn't really in the game. Now, it would be rare for him not to be starting. Do you know what I mean? There's other players as well. Colwill playing left back and not playing centre back. I can understand that, because obviously Cucurella is a left back, and even though you might question whether he's been consistent enough, he's looked a lot better. He's not been as great in recent weeks, but he has looked a lot better than he did last year.
And you often had to play him on the right anyway.
Exactly. But there's so many things to consider with this squad. It's not just having the players and then just playing them in that system. It's about who's fit enough. The team that you're playing against, where is their danger? Yeah. Who has good relationships? And the only thing that I seriously question, and I still question now, and I can kind of understand it now, because Mudryk probably wasn't up to scratch in terms of his IQ of what Poch wanted from him, was Chilwell playing left wing when we started the season. I think if Nkunku wasn't injured, probably would have been starting there. If Carney was starting, but he was playing a bit of a number 10. If he had trusted Madueke a little bit more, then those players would have been there. But I think he just wanted people to know how to play the system. Now you're looking at a team where people question why Cucurella started right back. Now Reece James is injured. Like, there's a lot of things that aren't said in the general public, because if you say everything, you'll have people saying you're making excuses. You have people saying that, oh, what's he talking about? He was here doing this. We've seen him in training. This is that. There's so much more to it. I say the same thing with every other team. Like, United are one of them, where Ten Hag is almost in a similar situation in terms of injuries, where he's saying, this player's not playing because of this and because of that. There's things that we don't hear. There's things that we don't know. Everyone thinks they know everything because you see someone quoting something on social saying, this player is available to fit, but Poch doesn't trust him. And then you'll see the quote of who it is. It's like, bro, who is that? Where did they get that information from? Do you know what I mean? So I think at this point, I'm just hoping that he has a clear plan. I've seen enough games to know that there's enough in the team for us to climb up the table, but you just want to see it on a consistent basis. And I don't want him to get too caught up in the noise. At the start, he wasn't. You know, there was the results and the not winning and Nottingham Forest and the Aston Villa game. He wasn't getting caught up in the noise because he knew that some of the performances and some of the glimpses he was seeing was progressive. Now, last few weeks, it seems like he's getting agitated. Do you know what I mean? Like, the
talking about the transfer window, I didn't think it was a great one. Yeah.
I don't think that helps, because once you do that, he did it on Sunday, right? The day after, you're seeing headlines of the players that he wants out, the players that he wants in. I'm thinking, how does everyone know this? He spoke about it Sunday evening. Where did this information come from? But that's what you open yourself to, because you said just one statement. And if you're being honest, you're saying experience is needed. I'm saying experience is needed. I don't know where exactly because the team is still packed out, but it's something that is very clear, but he didn't have to say it. So I can understand why people get frustrated at Poch, but at the same time, it's a project. Like, we're not in a position that Chelsea want to be. Do we have to accept that things could get worse before they get better? Yes. You just have to.
Very reasonable today.
Like, no, but you have to.
No,
You
I
have to.
agree.
Because really and truly, some of the performances were there, some of the performances weren't. I've seen Caicedo have good games. I've seen him have bad games. I've seen Enzo have good games. I've seen him have bad games. Gallagher started a bit wonky. Now he's one of our best players. Like, there's only surety. The only player that I've seen have consistent games week in, week out is Cole Palmer. That's the only player in the Chelsea squad. So it's difficult. Like, he's obviously dealing with what we're seeing. We're seeing players play good one week and the next week they're not. So imagine how hard it is as a manager, but that's a job he signed up for. So
yeah, he's in there for the long haul. With a lot of these players for the long haul
as
well.
Trust
me. 2030
contracts. 2030, bro.
Okay, to wrap up the show, I want you to rate these players out of 10 on their performances this season.
Gosh. Okay. Oh, gosh.
Robert Sanchez. We're going to do this relatively quick fire.
6.
Disassi.
7.
Fair enough. Kukurea?
6. No. 5. 5, yeah.
Thiago Silva.
8. There has to be 8.
Okay.
8, 9.
Colwill.
6. I think it's unfortunate with Colwill though, because he's been playing out of position. He's obviously just going there because that's what the manager wants from him, but he's obviously a centre-back. Like, do you know what I mean? I do want to see a centre-back pairing of Colwill and Badley. I don't know why in football it's a rarity that two left-footed centre-backs play together, but let's see it, man. They're both quality, and I think that Colwill can play on the right, Badley can play on the left, and see what happens.
If you're Thiago.
To be fair, Thiago, there has to be a point where we accept that he's going to play a different role in the squad. Not saying it should be now necessarily, but where you are going to change things up a little bit, and where he did play Disassi and Badley, do it with Colwill and Badley and see what happens.
I like it. Okay, those are the defenders that have been playing regular. I'm not going to ask you about James
please.
and Chilwell. I think that's a bit harsh. Enzo Fernandez.
I'd say 5. I'd say started the season well. In recent weeks, hasn't been to the level that we expect. But I don't know why. I do know why, because he cost upwards of 100. Yeah. But the noise around him and the comparisons and all of these things that we're seeing, it's like, bro, players have bad periods sometimes. Yeah. He's been honest and said why he thinks that is. Not saying that is an excuse, but it's a reality. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think Chelsea fans slightly contributed to it by some online saying that he was like the best thing since sliced bread?
But you have to watch the man play.
He's great.
He's quality.
He's
quality. But when
people made out that he was an all-timer.
Of course. But where you've seen some of the stuff that we've been through, you would hold on to those type of hopes of having a player like him. And I think he's going to get back to his best. I think Lavia is going to be very key to that midfield, like getting a new energy. Do you know what I mean? Maybe a few weeks where either Enzo's not playing or Caicedo's not playing to just get that fire back and space out of the limelight.
Okay, another big one coming up. Moses Caicedo.
I'd put him in that same category. So 5, 6. Had some good games, had some questionable games, but again, it's just a lot of pressure, man. Yeah. And I hear it. The pressure's going to be there regardless. But when they are...
Welcome to the Premier League.
Trust me. But when they're good, no one talks about it.
No, I know.
When they're bad, the world is talking.
They're the easy target in the team, aren't they? Because they're the players that cost £100 million.
Exactly. When they're not playing well, oh my gosh, the £225 million midfielder, how can they not be working? It's like, bro, it's their first season together.
The tweet writes itself, though. The tweet writes itself. I actually haven't put one of those out yet.
I'm going to check after.
Yeah. Conor Gallagher.
7.
Yeah.
7,
I
8.
actually thought you might go 8. But
7, 8. 7, 8.
Sterling.
Oh, 6.5. 6.5.
So you might go 7. Okay. Mudryk.
6.5, 7-ish.
Jackson.
I'd put him in the category of Enzo and Caicedo. He's had a few good games. Started the season well, wasn't scoring. Then the games that he wasn't playing necessarily well in, he was scoring. But also, I feel like people don't appreciate what he does, like in terms of linking up the team. He's not the best on the ball. You can tell he's still roughing a few edges, he's still raw, but he's deceptively strong.
Seriously. Yeah.
He can link up play really well. I think the injury threw him off his balance a little bit. But I just want him to get back to the confidence that he had in pre-season, where everyone was talking about him being a steal. Now it's like the whole pressure, the whole world's on him.
I'm quite excited by him, to be totally honest. I think he's been quite good. I totally agree. Wiry strong.
Yeah.
Right, final one. This is going to be a huge score, I think. Cole Palmer.
Oh, 9.
Yeah.
He's been incredible. Like, he's
Surprised
been incredible.
You?
Yeah, 100%. I didn't expect him to have the impact that we've seen. I knew he was good, but you never really know how good people are at City until they get out of the team, because it's like the City system works for itself to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
But he is the guy that just wants to get on the ball every single time. He wants to create chances. He's got this nonchalant confidence about him. I feel like he's the type of player Chelsea fans thought Havertz was going to be, with the type of way he plays, the chances he creates, where he plays as well, because he can play anywhere. He played false 9 really well against Arsenal as well. He's played number 10, played out wide, and he just does everything. He does everything, and I think he's the standard setter. He's the type of player that you can look at the other players and be like, why? You know, if you're Sunday League manager, be like, why are you not playing like him? Those managers that say like, he's giving his all, and you lot are just watching him. I'm sure Poch has had that type of team talk, but yeah, he's been amazing. Man.
He's amazing.
Honestly. He's quality, man.
I think he's been brilliant. Massive respect to him as well. Guys, thank you so much for watching this week's Sunday Vibes, How to Fix Chelsea. I think we did a little bit of fixing. It was more like a therapy session.
It was a therapy session, and Dougie asked me to do this. So none of the talk about, he's always talking about Chelsea. This is about Chelsea.
This is about Chelsea.
Yeah?
This is only about Chelsea.
I actually want to know everyone's thoughts in the comments, because I know that there's some people that are actually...
Help him process his thoughts.
Because really,
that was very well processed.
Realistically, yeah, some people are quite honest, and some people just want to banter and troll. I can hear both sides. But if you're honest and you want to look at the Chelsea squad, where do you think they could be better? Like, genuinely let us know. The trolling stuff, fair enough, it's funny. But let's be serious. Let's have some serious conversations, because I'm going to be in those comments, because I want to know what people think.
Nice one. Obby, you absolutely nailed that. Quickly before you go, I'm going to absolutely throw you under the bus. Enormous bus. Can we have a scoreline prediction for Sheffield United this weekend?
I don't do scoreline predictions.
Come on.
I don't do scoreline predictions. I'm actually
turning into Sky Suit.
You know, we just need to win. Just win.
I'm going to say 1-1. I just wanted to see his face.
Gosh.
No, I think you'll scrape that. I think you'll scrape over. 2-1.
2-1.
Chris
please.
Wilder's plucky blades to call some.
Just win, please.
Just win. Get the win. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Big up Matisse. Big up Oba for coming on and talking about their favourite and also at the moment least favourite topic, Chelsea Football Club. We'll catch you next time. Bye bye.